Good morning, Jean.
Morning, Charmaine.
So I think we wanted to make a quick video around perimenopause and brain health.
hmm
Um, we chatted about this last week and we thought we'll just capture some thoughts very quickly. And the reason for this is it's something I think both of us does see quite a lot in practice is um, you know people complaining about cognitive changes around perimenopause and menopause. So yeah, I think just a discussion around what that is. But what is it that you see in practice?
I see, a lot of my menopausal patients, one of the main issues they complain about after hot sweats is cognitive or brain fog, really, where they say they just can't think straight, they're losing words, they just can't remember things. And it is a very, very common feature of menopause or perimenopause. And I think there's a lot of fear around it. There's a lot of fear that this is something that's going to become permanent. Um,
Mhm.
and to a certain extent, that's when you want to really be tackling this. And as we'll discuss when we look at some of these slides, we'll see that there is actually some physiological change happening and that it's a good thing to deal with at perimenopause stage rather than later.
Yeah, I think it is quite a critical time for the brain. We know that in terms of long-term brain health, it's women are much more prone to developing conditions like dementia and certain other neurodegenerative conditions as well, as a result of kind of rapid changing hormones in menopause. So it is a critical time. But I see in my practice quite a lot of really high functioning women, business women, who end up being, getting to a point where they almost want to give up their work
Mhm.
as a result of it because they're not sleeping, brain's not working, they lose confidence.
Mhm.
And so, I think getting some support in prior to
Okay.
that can be really important.
And that's an important thing. It's confidence. That's the one thing I do agree strongly with is that you see an amazing shift in confidence in perimenopausal women because of things like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so one of the things we actually looked at was that I'm going to share my screen here. To encourage people to think about perimenopause as a neurological condition, actually, not
Mhm.
just a hormonal, but actually neurological condition. And if you just have a look at this, um, in fact, we know that 20% of women will go through perimenopause into menopause without any symptoms, which is great. But there's a very big number of women that do have symptoms. So 80% of women will have symptoms. Of that 80%, 30% will have only hot flashes. But 70%, which is a really big number, have got hot flashes plus cognitive dysfunction and insomnia, changes in mood, things like depression. So, it's quite significant symptoms.
It's interesting. It's one of the things I always say to most patients that come in with menopausal complaints. Um, they think they're different because they'll come in with menopause symptoms, but they'll say, "I'm not having hot flushes," and they think they're abnormal. But actually, I agree, they're more normal. In the sense that the majority I see are neurological, especially mood changes. Mood
Yeah.
changes are massive, and
Yeah.
sleep disruption.
So this was an interesting a paper that was in Nature in 2015, and where they showed just the regions of the brain that has got estrogen receptors. Now, a lot of the time, we think of ovaries and for blood vessels and things generally have got estrogen receptors, but just look at how many areas of the brain are rich in estrogen receptors. So if you look at the front of the brain, executive function and working memory, estrogen receptors. And then you look at information processing happening in the hippocampus. And then your adrenergic system, right? That's the part of the body that regulates things like anxiety and attention. So how many of your perimenopausal women are complaining of anxiety?
Virtually, I mean, very rarely they're not. It's probably one of the every single prescription I make up, I've got anti-anxiety meds in there.
Yeah.
For them. Yeah, totally.
And then your serotogenic system, which is the production of serotonin, estrogen receptors, right? So now you're looking at low mood. And so it's not just a case of sort of pull yourself together and get out of this. If your estrogen levels are dropping and these receptors are not getting stimulated, it's going to be having a major impact. Look at the amygdala, emotion and motivation.
Absolutely. And also the other one, you know, if you look at the hypothalamus, which is obviously the thing that's controlling temperature, but it's also controlling energy and it's also controlling food intake. And we frequently will see women going through this period where, you know, food is massively disrupted, energy, and the amount of food that they want is disrupted. And we tend to just, we're very blasé about the thing of, oh, it's just the menopause. But this is your brain. This is brain function. Yeah.
And then also hypothalamus, like you say, look what else is there, sleep. So insomnia, which is a huge thing. And I mean, if you're not sleeping, your brain's going to be struggling anyway. But, you know, throw all of this in together with then not sleeping. It's not great.
And I think the thing that's really important is that one of the reasons we're doing this wee chat is the fact that it's important for women to see that there is real physiological reasons why they're feeling this way. It's so dismissed, and it seems to be getting more attention at the present moment. But it's so frequently dismissed as, oh, it's just the stage of life you're going through. These are really, really important metabolic changes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And physiological changes.
Oh, there was the other one we found. So this was a really interesting study around blood flow in the brain.
Yes. This is just incredible. I mean, if you look at that.
I think this is a really important one because what it shows you is that in postmenopausal women, there is a reduced flow of blood to the brain. And this is, of course, blood is how oxygen is delivered into the brain for every single cell to function. So actually from a herbal point of view, this becomes really quite interesting.
It's fabulous. And the other thing, I was going to pop that slide back up again, Charmaine, just for a second, just to explain, just in case you hadn't quite picked up the chart. The areas on the left-hand side, the premenopausal control brain, all of those red areas are blood supply. And you can see on the right-hand side, postmenopausal, how restricted that is. And yeah, you're right. And in terms of herbal medicine, we've got wonderful herbs that are really important. They're cerebral circulatory herbs that increase blood supply and blood flow to the brain. Really important. But also, you know, one of the reasons we're also talking about this as well is that we run a brain health program. We're about to start it in a week or 2 weeks time. And the thing that the brain health program does is it shows you how you can address these things with your day-to-day living. So you're not necessarily seeing a herbalist, not necessarily seeing someone else, but looking at your food, looking at your nutrition, looking at your exercise, looking at how you can optimize your sleep. And I think it's important to see that there is a lot that you can do yourself. And I think that's really empowering. I think it's important that we empower women to take a real grasp of this themselves and do what they can do themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, in terms of that, you know, these are very well researched, you know, things that are on the brain health program. So it's not just a collection of these are things we think are good for you. Everything in there is coming out of very solid research.
So evidence-based, basically, that in fact, everything that is in there is evidence-based. That was how it was put together. So,
and absolutely, and I think, you know, in your 20s and 30s, you can maybe get away with a lot of things. You know, you can get away with poor nutrition and not sleeping very well, and all of these things. But when you start to hit this time in your life, it becomes really important to make sure that you have all of those lifestyle elements working really, really well. And I think even from us, I mean, you were talking about giving people something they can do for themselves, but even for my patients that come in, if those lifestyle elements are not in place, it becomes really difficult to get long-term change. There are, you know, of course, there's a lot we can do, but fundamentally getting all this kind of foundation lifestyle stuff in order is really important.
Critical. Yeah, totally. Wonderful. Great. Hope you've enjoyed our little chat this morning.
And join us for the brain health program if you want to find out a little bit more.
Yeah, all you need to do is go to the Cognition website, which is www.cognition.co.uk. And there's a section there on brain health. And if you want to come along, we'd love to see you there.